So, I don't know about you guys, but when I read an author's writings, a lot of the time, I think what makes them write this way, what made them do this or this, and one of the obvious answers to that question is that they were influenced by other people that they've read. And Stephen King is definitely no exception in this regard. Stephen King was influenced by Peter Straub, Raymond Chandler, Ross Macdonald, H.P. Lovecraft, Robert Parker, Dorothy Sayers, and Ralph Ellison. Those are the main influences. And these influences I got from a book called Stephen King from A to Z. It's actually an encyclopedia about Stephen King and about his works that was written by George W. Beam. I'm guessing on that pronunciation. Okay, so I know what you guys are thinking. That's a lot of people. I'm really just going to focus on two of them. It's quite a lot of people. And I really just want to talk to you about Peter Straub and H.P. Lovecraft. Those, from what I could tell comparing works, were the main two. And King is often featured as quoting on the cover of Straub's books. Like one I found was, he has a quote on Ghost Story that says, "The terror just mounts and mounts." And obviously King wouldn't allow him to put quotes like that if he didn't really approve of the work. And Straub he writes in the horror genre like King. Some of the same things are present. Some of the same horror type things are present throughout both books. And I actually also compared sentence structure between Straub and King. And their use of adjectives is very similar to one another. Both use them sparingly, but when they do, they tend to take nouns and make them more adjective-like. But when they actually use an adjective, it's a jarring one, or it's a very significant adjective. And then the second one I want to talk about is H.P. Lovecraft. Now, we all read The Call of Cthulhu at the beginning of the semester, so I had a little bit of experience with him in the sci-fi aspect. And that's another reason why I think he's one of the most influential, because King pulls in the sci-fi things with his horror. It's not just horror, zombies are going to eat you. There's aliens or things of that nature. And I also compared them on the structural level, sentence by sentence. And H.P. Lovecraft and King use a lot of similar pronouns. They both use a lot of them throughout their work, where Straub is more likely to actually name people. So I thought that was kind of interesting, because if you don't read it carefully, sometimes you get confused about who they're talking about. And once in a while I have to reread some of King's work, because he jumps who he's talking about halfway through the sentence and doesn't always align the pronouns. And all three of these writers actually have very similar use of prepositions and prepositional phrases throughout their works, as opposed to just stating it like Hemingway does, bam, bam, bam. They use prepositional words to build up the complexity of the sentences. And so obviously these two authors have had a large impact on King, on his career and on his writings themselves. And while there are far more, I would have loved to discuss them all, but I'm sure you wouldn't have wanted to sit here and listen to every single one. So, are there any questions?
Thank you, Beth.